Hey people, it is Tuesday, January the 25th. The time is 12:20 in the afternoon and the temperature is currently minus 6 degrees Celsius, but feeling quite a bit colder with the wind chill factor. And I'm here looking down on the Gardiner Expressway, right near the corner of Lakeshore Boulevard West and Jameson Avenue. And I'll be walking north along Jameson Avenue all the way up to Queen Street, and then I'll be continuing east along Queen Street through the retail stretch in the Parkdale neighborhood. Now, Jameson Avenue here is a street that was once lined with old heritage homes, but I think starting in the 1950s it was redeveloped to be a high-density thoroughfare through Parkdale, lined with these apartment buildings. Mid-rise and high-rise apartment buildings line the street all the way between Springhurst Avenue and Queen Street. Oh, just missed a GO train. It's the rail corridor. So now we'll begin our walk through the Jameson Avenue apartment corridor. There are a couple of other streets in Parkdale that had a similar transformation, but not as extensively as Jameson Avenue here. And these buildings are in varying condition. Some are all right, some are not so great places to live. I think some are owned by slumlords who don't maintain the buildings. Others are maintained a lot better. It's sort of a hit and miss kind of situation here. I've had some friends who lived in some of these buildings and they seemed okay to me, the ones that I have been inside. But just from hearing news stories about some of the tenant disputes with the landlords, I know some of the buildings are definitely not the greatest place to live. But I think the rents are quite affordable compared to some other buildings in the core of the city. And as you can see, the sidewalks are nicely clear of snow. Can't say the same about some other streets I've walked through in the neighborhood before I started this video. Here's King Street. This is one of the two main streets that run through Parkdale, east to west, through the neighborhood. The other one being Queen Street, of course. And here's a nice old pre-war apartment building. At one time, this was probably one of the only apartment buildings on Jameson Avenue, when the rest of the street was lined with old homes. The Royal Court. I guess you'd have to do your research to figure out which buildings are the better ones and which ones are to be avoided. It all depends on who owns the buildings. Some of these large corporate landlords don't do the best job of maintaining their properties. There's a couple in mind that I can think of, but I'll decline to mention them right now. You can check this one out online if you're curious. And here's an old remaining home here. Wonder what caused that house to remain when every other one was demolished. Maybe it was like in the movie Up. Somebody just refused to sell. And here's the local high school, Parkdale Collegiate Institute. This one's kind of neat looking with its curvy balconies. That one is 190 Jameson. This one is called the Sunset Tower. So most of these buildings aren't much to look at from the outside. But I do remember when I visited a friend inside one of them, it was actually quite nice on the inside, which is often the case with some of these older apartment buildings. Alright, so here's Queen Street West. The main retail stretch here in the former village of Parkdale. One time Parkdale was separate from the city of Toronto. So an independent village. I suppose I have to cross over here.
When I was talking to Katie last week, it seemed like
to the west you'll find Roncesvalles Avenue. Roncesvalles is the western boundary of Parkdale, and Dufferin Street is the eastern boundary, and that's the direction we're walking right now, towards Dufferin. And hopefully that person will be able to dig their bike out. This neighborhood also is known as Little Tibet, being that there are quite a few Tibetan restaurants lining this part of Queen Street. And quite a sizable Tibetan community obviously lives in the neighborhood as well. I think many of them actually live on Jameson Avenue and some of those apartment buildings. Most of the apartment buildings are very popular with immigrants as their first home in the city. Nice old neon sign. I'm not sure if it still works. It looks like it's still in working order, but I'll have to come back at night sometime to check that one out. think last time I walked through this part of Queen Street West in Parkdale was with Megan, who was my girlfriend, and I told her I wouldn't do another walk through Parkdale until she was in town and we could both do it together again, but she was just in town and we didn't come here. And then I told her I was trying to think of neighborhoods to walk through for my upcoming videos. And she just suggested Parkdale to me. Told me about a couple of neat spots that I should check out. So I said, okay, well, if you say it's okay, I'm going to do it. This is her favorite neighborhood in the city. There's the Toronto Public Library branch here in the neighborhood. So as you can see, this is a pretty eclectic retail strip here. Vastly made up of independent businesses. Large chain stores would not be very welcomed in this neighborhood, although they have been making their way further and further west along Queen Street. I think this neighborhood prides itself on its eclectic independent nature. And it has become quite popular with the hipster crowd, if you want to use that term, which I think is kind of dated now. And if you're into vintage clothing, then this is the neighborhood to come to. And as you can see, the condos are making their way further and further west. But they don't front directly onto Queen Street, taking out old historic storefronts. They're usually set back behind the storefronts. So I'm pretty sure the historic facades are all protected, or at least not up for redevelopment. So this is Dufferin Street. So this is the eastern boundary of Parkdale. We're just walking under the rail corridor. I think the Via Rail, Go Transit, and the Up Express all use the tracks above us. There's the old Gladstone Hotel. So now we're actually in the West Queen West neighborhood. And I just noticed this new condo does directly front onto Queen Street, but I don't think this replaced some old historic storefronts though. I'll have to look back on Google Maps and some of their older imagery to see what used to be here, because right now I can't seem to remember if it was just an undeveloped plot or if it was some other buildings of a non-historic nature, or maybe they're dilapidated buildings. I don't know, I'll have to go back and check. But buildings of this sort are generally not demolished on Queen Street to make way for new condos or other residential developments. See, they have a Pac-Man game in there. Now, for instance, if a residential development was proposed for this plot right here, I don't think there'd be much of a outcry. These buildings are obviously not historic storefronts. And this is actually pretty out of place for the neighborhood with its front parking. It's more like a suburban plaza. here in the heart of the city. So maybe sometime in the near future that will be coming down to make way for a new residential building such as the ones right behind it.
Like,
Here's Dovercourt Road. And I always get a kick out of this. Poppy's Restaurant. I just think of that Seinfeld episode every time I walk past here. Poppy peed on my sofa. And there's the Great Hall. I saw a Sloan concert there. It's quite an impressive venue on the inside, and it's quite impressive on the outside too, truth be told. So I think I'm going to start to wrap up this video here as I continue east along Queen Street. But I hope you enjoyed the walk through the Parkdale neighborhood, starting at Jameson Avenue and continuing along its length, north up to Queen Street, and then east along Queen Street West through the old retail core of the neighborhood, and continuing a little ways into West Queen West here. So, if you enjoyed, leave a comment below, let me know your thoughts, and be sure to like and share and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos. And if you'd like to support the channel, there are links in the description where you can do so via PayPal and via my merch store. And you can also find me on Instagram under KContinuum. So thanks for watching, and be sure to keep checking back because, as always, I will continue